Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Monday. Yeah, it's going to get heated up this week here in the Valley of the Sun. We're going to push 90. I heard the weather report up there at 1360, and they're talking about, hey, weather in the 60s up there in Colorado. Get out there and enjoy it while you can. So many things continuing to happen just all over the place, really. I mean, but Zelensky and Ukraine, you know, it was so funny. I'll resign as long as we can be a part of NATO. And I just kind of I'm like, isn't that what the whole war is about, right? I mean, wasn't that the problem to begin with? But, yeah, then we got, what, more? Kash Patel is in charge of the FBI, and then he taps Dan Bongino, who was we played him right here. Bongino followed us on the half-empty cup. On 1360, and I guess we're going to have to figure something else out because he's now going to be over at the FBI. Of course, all the liberals, they were freaking out and saying that, hey, it's unfair, that it should have been, I guess, somebody that's worked at the FBI. They're you know, well, traditionally, Jason, that's a job that would go to one of they call them special agents in charge. That's kind of when you get to that level. That means you've gotten up there in the FBI, and so they're upset because they didn't go the normal route, and of course, you know, like anything, you don't go the normal routes anymore. Everyone's going to be upset, but maybe it's a good thing. You know what? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how all of this plays out. A lot of worries about the Trump plan now. They're worried as far as is it going to derail the economy? Is the economy actually going to be strong enough to survive without all of this government to back it up? We had two big down days, Thursday and Friday on Wall Street. I mean, Friday, it got down, lost 700 points. Today, the Dow tried to open higher. Right now, it's mixed. The S&P and the NASDAQ down pretty significantly. The Dow trying to hold on. But, Jason, I think this is something we keep talking about. We keep telling people, you better watch out here. You better get diversified. Everything was priced to perfection. We've got new all-time record high gold prices again. I'm not surprised. Listen, we're going to say that a lot again this year. And then Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway. Right? Yeah, Uncle Warren. They had their big meeting, and it was interesting because we know that he has been stockpiling cash. It hit a new when we start thinking about, gosh, we keep saying this a lot. Well, it's a new all-time record high. It's a new all-time record high. It's a new all-time record high. Well, guess what? Berkshire Hathaway, it's a new all-time record high amount of cash on hand. The one thing that kind of unnerved people about the Berkshire Hathaway earnings was there was no explanation given by Warren Buffett as to why it is that he continues to sell the stock market. And of course, I'm sitting there thinking, well, gosh, I don't think it's a big mystery, right? I mean, everything's priced to perfection. We talk about PE ratios. We talk about bubbles and dot-coms. I think Warren Buffett, he's getting ready in a Warren Buffett type way, Jason.
Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Jamie Dimon are also continuing to sell their own stock.
Yeah.
They're all doing it. They're all doing it at the exact same time. So those markets that show the turbulence last Thursday and Friday, a lot of that's probably from some big sellers, and the fact that it's trying to hold this position, Joe, is it's that sad situation where they leave everybody else holding the bag, right, Joe? Because when the thing actually falls apart, so it's not going to be them that lose money.
One of the things when we looked at the beginning of the Trump administration stock market, they're talking about retail investors piling in, right? Because they're excited. Hey, our guy won, piling in. But then they were saying, hey, yeah, the retail investor piled in, but the hedge funds, the big guys, the Buffetts of the world, they were all selling. And so it's going to be one of those things where we'll learn more as this plays out. You got to remember, a lot of these cuts, Doge and saying, hey, we're doing this and we're doing that, and we found this, we found that, we're going to cut this, and these people are getting fired, and those people are getting fired, and we're firing these. It's barely started. Matter of fact, I want to say it was like Thursday of last week was like the first big day that government people actually got fired. I want to say there were 7,000 or 8,000 in a single day, but that is going to be picking up steam. But the fear really is in, can we actually cut all that government and not create a big recession? That's what's got Wall Street on edge, and of course, everything priced to perfection. Patriot Radio News Hour. We're going to be back right after the break. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Monday, and again, concerns now starting to mount. We've got talk about PE ratios and bubbles, and how much cutting of the government can we actually do without crashing the economy? And then, of course, the big spending plans by Donald Trump, and AI is all the rage. Or is it? That is really what's gotten the markets unraveled here. But as we quickly look in right now, the Dow up 50, was up almost 300 points, but it's up 50 here. The S&P's down 15, the NASDAQ's down 150, the 10-year note 444. So the 10-year note, we are getting some relief on that 10-year note. But it all has to do with, hey, we're worried about recession now. Crude oil is flat. Like we said, gold has hit new all-time highs today. It's been as high as $29.60. Right now it's up 10, $29.46. $29.46 on gold. Silver's not playing right now. Again, silver probably stalling out a little bit because people are worried because, it's still the industrial metal. So maybe a little selling pressure on silver. I don't think it's going to last very long. Any silver dip buy, but it's not like it's not a lot. It's down 20 cents. But 32.25. And again, stop wasting time. Premiums, when we talk about this a lot, how cheap they were. In 1 week, from last Monday to this Monday, gold premiums went up 1%. They doubled. Essentially. Silver went up another 25 cents. So think about it. Today they're down, not quite 25 cents, but down 25 cents. And yet the prices don't go down. Why? Because the premiums went up 25 cents. They're still below average. And unfortunately, they're getting less and less below average, but they're still below average. Get your IRAs done here. You got big IRAs. Call us. Let's get a precious metals IRA started so you can get in at these lower premiums because they are not going to last. And an article out of the Wall Street Journal talking about worries about companies like NVIDIA, companies like Microsoft, and the big, I would say the latest .com craze, which is the AI bubble. Apparently, Microsoft and others are canceling leases in the United States totaling hundreds of millions of square feet with at least 2 private data center operators, and they're reallocating a considerable portion of what they were planning on spending here in the U.S. Jason, essentially what Microsoft is saying is, we may have overdone it, right? We may have overdone the whole how much space and the AI and the .com, and hedging their bets and starting to pull back from these leases. And this is this has been the big growth engine. And it's something that we all kind of have worried about are they going to be able to deliver when it comes to AI, right? Is it going to end up where, hey, it's still, don't get me wrong, hey, it's still really good, but we may have overdone it, right? Okay, we're not going to need as much as we thought. It's still, Jason, let's just say this, it's still being developed. They need some more breakthroughs before they're really going to be ready for all of this spending.
Yeah, well, I don't believe in artificial intelligence actually being intelligence. I think it's algorithms, and what they're doing is making really sophisticated algorithms. And whoever's got the best programming is going to have the best AI, Joe. What the algorithms are developing is to, essentially end a lot of creative, in between, right, Joe? You just, when you use AI, you type in what you want, and then it gives you something that you're asking for. You don't physically have to draw the picture as an artist. You just have the AI draw it for you. Whoever's algorithms can really, really bridge the gap the fastest and the most effective, and whichever algorithms helps government control it over its citizens. So that's who's going to win. And what I think they're saying, Joe, is I think every time somebody comes up with a new quote-unquote AI, it's better than the last guys, and I think there's a lot of room to run. I think that's what they're saying. With a lot of technologies, you get to a certain point, and then it's, iPhone 25. Is it really much better than iPhone 6, right? Right, Joe? But right now with AI, I believe I think these AI algorithms are getting better each time someone develops it. Just like that one that came out of China that was suddenly way cheaper, showing that AI has a lot of room to run is going to get a lot of people in wanting to invest in it, Joe.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see. It's just interesting to see Microsoft pulling back, and of course, a lot of let's call it what it is. A lot of these companies said that they were going to be spending huge amount of revenues and huge amount of capital to put into AI, and here we are. We're just getting started, and Microsoft comes out and says, well, we're going to just pull it back here just a little bit. We're going to cancel millions of square feet of space because, we may not be ready for it, and I think that's what has people on edge. It's just simply, hey, the amount of money that people were anticipating being spent is now in question, right? Do they need to spend that amount of money? And if they're not going to spend that amount of money, how's that going to affect this economy when the government, let's face it, we are in cutting mode, right? We're wanting to try to spend money differently, I guess, for lack of a better term, where the Trump administration, listen, we want to give tax cuts, we want to go after certain spending programs. We want to go with tariffs. We want to try to generate revenue in what we'll say, at least in recent times, non-traditional ways. When we think about government spending and government revenue, when's the last time tariffs have really been a big part of that? And now with inflation and all of these other things, I think Wall Street right now, we're going to have to get real lucky. And I don't know if we're going to be able to or not. And that's why I'm just telling everybody, listen, get yourself protected here. Just be smart about it, right? And understand that chances are, like anything, cutting down this government, it has to be done. It has to be done. But it's going to hurt, Jason, and that's the thing. I don't think everybody wants us to, miraculously, let's cut out $1 trillion, right? We're going to cut $1 trillion, right? We know that won't happen, but still.
They're going to spend more.
That. That is such a huge amount of spending that's going to disappear. And you don't think there's going to be a negative consequences for that? Of course there's going to be. And I think this is the thing that I think Wall Street's kind of dealing with right now is, okay, how negative are the consequences actually going to be? And, we're talking about Warren Buffett and his cash pile. We talk about what's going on with central banks. And all of a sudden, these higher gold prices aren't scaring them away. That's just what I think they really thought would happen. Hey, gold's going to get to 3,000, and these central banks are all going to stop buying. And what we've had instead, it's like they've ramped it back up again. Like we're probably going to say 2025 will be a record for physical gold demand coming out of the metals exchanges in London and New York. And I don't think the world was really prepared for that. But I think that just tells you, hey, guys, and it's not just here. Don't get me wrong. It's everywhere. Look at the German elections, right? The very right wing finishes second. The ultra right. By the way, the right finished first. They finished second. I mean, Jason, the whole world is kind of panicking because, hey, we're going to elect somebody else, but it doesn't seem to change the financial picture.
Doge's cutting is a complete fantasy. I was looking, David Stockman wrote an article over the weekend on David Stockman on why the House GOP's budget resolution hides a $4.4 trillion deficit fraud. It's a long article, and it's hard to follow, but here's some of the what he calls the $6 trillion that they're going to raise the deficit in the next 10 years. Ways and Means Committee, $4.5 trillion in the next 10 years, going up. Judicial Committee for Crime on Border Control, up $110 billion. Armed Services Committee for Pentagon increases $100 billion more. Homeland Security Committee on Border Control, another $100 billion. Implied higher interest expense, which Joe talks about every single day on the show, another $1.2 trillion in the next 10 years. Total deficit increase, $6 trillion, and this is represented by the GOP. The Republicans are offering this. So the Doge is a complete fantasy. It's just to get you to not look at the more spending that's coming, Joe.
Well, and again, I wouldn't call it a complete fantasy, but the problem that we have is it doesn't actually lead to a government that's going to spend less money. I wish it did, right? The problem is, and they get it, hey, we're going to cut all this spending, but we still want to spend more than what we're cutting. right? At the end of the day, that's not cutting. Last time I know. I went to public school. Maybe I'm not the smartest guy in the shed, but the last time I checked, spending more than you cut is not cutting spending. That dog doesn't hunt, right? I mean, that's literally not what that is. All that really is, hey, we're just going to spend more money. I mean, yeah, we cut stuff. Unfortunately, we decided that we wanted to spend more than we cut on all this other stuff. Well, that's not a spending cut.
Doesn't do it. And getting rid of government personnel shows a little bit of a desperation, because usually government just gets beefier and beefier and bigger and bigger. So if they actually, and I've watched many reports of the firings of government employees, so it's actually happening. These people are now. It never says exactly if they're going to stay fired. Like this one department that's being cut out. It's supposed to be, it's Elizabeth Warren's, her little thing she put together after the housing crisis. Or they want to cut. Doge went in there and shut the doors, and they're killing off that department. But even the woman that was fired, that was talking, this was on 60 Minutes last night. She's like, well, I'm going to get in the union and I'm going to fight this thing. She didn't seem like somebody that was fired and was actually losing a position. She looked like somebody that was just angry. So I've seen people that get fired, Joe. They don't act like that.
800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour on this Monday. Again, a new high in gold to start this week. We had Wall Street now starting to show some strains. And again, a lot of it having to do with everything was priced to perfection. As we're getting earnings rolling in, it's not that they've been horrible. I mean, some have been, but a lot of them, they're okay. They're not bad, but that's not good enough. Not even close to good enough. And now, all of a sudden, we're talking about, hey, a major change in spending policy, and how is that going to affect the overall economy? And I think, listen, you don't have to be Warren Buffett to understand what's going to happen here. You just don't have to be. There's a reason why he's not buying stocks. And it's really a simple reason. They're not worth the price. I'm going to wait until the price gets cheaper. And oh, by the way, I've amassed $350 billion to do it. And there's no end in sight here. How does Warren Buffett buy? Listen, he doesn't save up like this for 5%, 10%, 20%. No. Warren Buffett, he is saving up for the big stuff. That's what he does. It's what he's always done. It's part of, gosh, why is Warren Buffett the greatest investor of modern time, right? Well, you ever listen to the guy? Well, let's see. He goes, I don't buy stuff I don't understand. Right? That's why I didn't buy any of these, collateralized debt obligations and all that, because he's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Right? Crypto, that doesn't make any sense. He doesn't like gold. But do you actually listen to him when he says about it? Why he doesn't like it? He doesn't like it because he's like, well, I think I can make more money investing somewhere else, right? I can manipulate. I can interest rates or things like that. I feel like, hey, I can make more money doing it a different way. And you know what? He's right. He can. He has. He probably will continue to do so. But the rest of us, listen, I don't have right. Whatever. How many billions was it? $380-something billion, right? I don't have $387 billion to do different, right? I don't get to go in and buy controlling stakes of major corporations. But it is interesting, Jason. He's done it in the past with silver. It's not like he never does it. But I'm telling you right now, if you haven't bought gold this year, what in the heck are you doing? What are you doing? They're telling you exactly what is going to happen. Warren Buffett's telling you exactly what's going to happen. What are you doing? Yes, what was it? Friday, we ran the Indian sale. $10 Indians, and we gave them away. I still have a bunch of them left, and I'm telling you right now, come tomorrow, you won't be able to buy any gold for this price. 1 through 9 on a $10 Indian, $15.75. But you're like, well, Joe, gold's up. Yeah, I know. $15.75. 10 or more, $15.65. 20 or more, $1,515. Or I'm sorry, $1,550. Got 15. That'd be suicidal. $1,550 at 800-951-0592. And Jason, it's just one of these things as we are continuing to watch these markets play out. Everything priced to perfection, but the world's not perfect. I think that's the biggest problem, right? I think Donald Trump gets that they've got to cut government. The problem is cutting the government is probably going to put us into a recession, and that's the biggest thing that people are worried about because, I'm sorry, I don't know, is there any major corporation that doesn't get something from the government? And when I mean that, I'm not saying like, okay, subsidies and this and that. No, but they got some kind of work with some kind of government contract. Almost every major corporation in the world probably has some kind of contract to do business with our government. And now they're sitting there saying, hey, wait a minute, not only do we got to cut the spending there, we got to put tariffs in, right? We got to get creative on how we want to raise revenue because, well, ultimately, as we already talked about, because they want to spend stuff somewhere else, Jason. I think that's the biggest thing that we're worrying about now as we look at the markets today. Is this going to be one of these big pullbacks? We don't know. It's still early. But a lot of people are like, okay, we're a little unsure here. I mean, are we going to see the Dow lose 4 or 5, heaven forbid, 10,000 points?
Or more. I mean, it just depends on how bad things get, right, Joe? Sell-offs happen when people are worried about where it's headed and how much sell-off happens, right, Joe? It's just the markets are ruled by such huge players that the big sell-offs don't tend to happen until all the small players are selling. And right now, a lot of people are pretty happy with it. They think things are kind of okay right now. So when does some dark shadows happen and scare off all the smaller sellers all at once? Well, time will tell. But the scary thing is, Joe, is that the market's kind of holding its own with all the huge players starting to exit in greater amount. And this has been going on for 2 years. These huge players are exiting. And there's a lot of 401ks at risk right now, Joe.
Well, I'll just say this. I'll continue to say it. You got big IRAs, call the Patriot Trading Group. Get some of that money into a precious metals IRA. You got money sitting in the bank. These Indians are the deal of a lifetime. Jason and I, we're going to be right back after the break. (800-951-0592) Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Monday. Starbucks saying they're going to lay off another 1,000 people as well. Sales continue to fall. The one good news, I guess, Apple today saying, hey, they're going to build some kind of server in Texas. Hey, we'll take it, right? We'll take it. But that's not building iPhones in Texas, that's for sure. And then how about this? JLL, they're a huge retail. They own a lot of malls and a lot of non-office commercial real estate. And they're saying, hey, store closings continue to mount. They're going to have more store closings than store openings, and by a lot, by like 10,000, something like that. More stores that are going to close than open. I guess the good news, if you want to, which they got to say something good, and that is, hey, we're selling more space to the service sector. So at least, I guess, Jason, at least they're selling something. But the fact of the matter is, when you look like Starbucks today, hey, here's 1,000 more people getting laid off. The amount of store closings and going out of business. Denny's, again, Denny's been constantly closing stores. Breakfast just getting too expensive for Denny's and what they're doing. Joann's, Hooters, right? We're starting to see this avalanche of retail store closures and just not enough other stuff to make up for it.
I think we're going to start seeing more and more of that, Joe. We've seen a lot of store closures. I remember a couple of years ago we were starting to see a swell of it, and then it's kind of calmed down. But I've noticed through the back end of 2024, we started seeing this right again, Joe. These store closures starting to mass up and get bigger and bigger. And I've been watching some shows and looking at different parts of the country, and there's definitely a downsizing going on with a lot of these franchise places, Joe.
Yeah, we're going to have to. And again, I think it's just, this is the fear when we sit here and we say, hey, why is somebody say like Warren Buffett, why is he stockpiling cash? These are one of those signs when we sit there and we say, wait a minute, we've got more store closings than stores opening. You look at like Walgreens, CVS, Party City, right? I mean, and they're not closing. It's not like, hey, we're closing 10. No, they're closing hundreds. They're closing thousands, right? Walgreens wants to shut 2,000 stores over the next 2.5 years. And I think on top of when you factor in how fully priced in Wall Street appears to be, I think it really is simple to understand not only why people are worried now about what's going to happen next and can we actually really cut the government the way that Donald Trump and Elon Musk say they're going to be able to do it. And then on top of that, when we sit here and we start looking at valuations, when we look at what are the big guys doing, right? What are the hedge funds doing? What are the banks doing? What are the 5 richest guys in the world doing? And Jason, the answer is sell. And then you start looking at what are they buying? Like the banks, like J.P. Morgan, they bought more gold in the last, 3 months than they probably did in the last 20 years that I've been doing this combined. I mean, Jason, there is a fundamental shift at play here.
Yeah, and we mentioned just earlier, talking about Warren Buffett's in a record cash position, right? I talked about it's just all of them, Joe. It just seems like those that are in the know, they've all kind of huddled together, and there seems like definitely seems like it's a planned event getting ready to happen. And sometimes, these things don't happen overnight. Even though you say the stock market crash, Joe, we talk about 1929, you think it all happened in one day. It doesn't happen in one day. It happens month after month after month, and then you just have this huge, colossal crash. And the biggest players, like Joe said, from wealthy billionaires down to, up to hedge funds and huge financial institutions are moving out of a lot of investments, Joe. They're moving into cash. They're moving into gold. And like Joe said in the first segment, they're putting themselves in a position to buy when every time there's a crash, there's a buying opportunity, right, Joe? It's not going to go to zero. The stock market's not going to go to zero because the stock market's supposed to represent business. It's just going to crash really hard. There's going to be a downturn, and there's going to be big buyers with bigger amounts of cash. Look at, Joe, right, remember the housing crash? Look at all the buying opportunities that created BlackRock and Blackstone, and when they scooped up all these cheap assets.
These whole divisions, right? I mean, if I could go back to the housing crash, right? Yeah, I would have bought as many homes as they would have let me, right? But you didn't know, right? You didn't know. And I think this is what's getting ready to happen here again. And this is why I keep telling people, and I don't know that I can be any more clear on this. Protect yourself here. You did a good job of saving your entire life, and you were successful at your job. You were able to put money away and put it in a 401k, and now you're sitting there in an IRA. Don't ride the loss down. Jump into gold here, and listen. After the market turns, right? And then you turn around, sell some of that gold, and buy stuff really cheap. That's what a great way to go. 800-951-0592. Final segment coming up. 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason on this Monday as we're talking about, okay, what's really going to come next now? How much is the government cutting going to affect the economy? Some people are saying, listen, the economy was already slowing before this started. And remember how bad retail sales were for January? And now there's worry about how much money the Trump administration wants to spend on top of this. Can the markets actually absorb all of this debt? The Fed essentially laying out, hey, get ready. We're going to stop quantitative tightening. That's going to be over by this summer. I'm going to tell you. The setup here for gold has never been this strong. Take advantage while the premiums are inexpensive, please. It's already changing. $10 innings. This is the greatest sale ever. Seriously. $10 innings are always so much more expensive than Liberties. And now you're going to be buying them for so much less. This is the last day for these 1 through 9, $15.75. 10 through 19, $15.65, 20 or more, $15.50. Listen, a $10 lift, $15.95. Tomorrow, probably more than $15.95, but you get $10 Indians again, 1 through 9, $15.75, 10 or more, $15.65, 20 or more, $15.50. You got gold here, $29.45, right? This will be a new record high close. We had a new intraday high of $29.60. And, we're sitting here, Jason, and we're watching all of this play out, and we're seeing the gold demand continue over the weekend. Banks continuing to buy fish. And not just banks. We don't even know, because I wish the banks would tell us. Who the heck's buying all this stuff that they're going to be delivering to, and where is it that it's all going to end up? And I think what we're seeing is a lot of this is ending up in huge vaults. These are private individuals. Maybe it's hedge funds, but sovereign wealth funds. Obviously, we know about central banks, but they're just pounding them into these vaults, Jason.
Yeah, we're only essentially one big up day in gold from 3,000, and then does that spring? Do people finally that are waiting? Do they finally just start buying? Does that start a little bit of a sell off? It just seems to me, Joe, when gold hits 3,000 officially, if it actually hits that here soon, I think it just keeps going, because I think people are going to keep buying. I think that number scares people into buying, not selling.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Is it going to have that opposite effect? I don't know. There's people out there that will say, well, maybe 3,000 will provide an opportunity for a pullback, and it could. But I'll just say this: any pullback in gold needs to be with tractor trailer type size. 800-951-0592.